Good afternoon, and welcome to the January 5th, 2023 meeting of the Rotary Club of Orlando. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all our visiting Rotarians and guests. Please know you're most welcome to attend. We're glad you could be with us. Now I'd like to start the meeting with an invocation from past President and District Governor nominee-elect, Dr. Richard Harris.
Join me in the invocation, if you would. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to come together as friends and in fellowship of service. We thank you for each and every member here, each and every guest, and each and every opportunity that you present to us. We thank you for calling us to a club with a long history of successful service to the Orlando community. And we ask you to bless our deliberations, guide our paths, and help us walk forward in a successful path that continues this long legacy of service. In your holy name we pray.
All right, thank you, Dick. Now, for our patriotic music, I'd like to call Captain Ken Chapman.
So before we sing, I want to give a really good announcement here. This is something you all should be extremely proud of. And Mr. President, we're not the Rotary Club of Orlando. We're the Rotary Club of Central Florida. This club raised at the kettle for the Salvation Army Red Kettle a record amount this year, $6,314 at the public. So we're so proud of you. So because of you, there will be people that have shelter and food that might not have had that otherwise. So thank you so much for that. So we're going to sing patriotic music today, the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He has trampled out the vineyard where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed his faithful lightning from his terrible sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. I'm a proud bulldog and a lucky one. Let's do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go Dogs!
And as a Gator fan, I have to say, go Dogs. Thank you, Ken. Now, for the introduction of our guests and visitors, I'd like to have Judge Allison Kirsties.
Good afternoon. We welcome you all today to the Rotary Club meeting. When I call your name, if you could please stand up and remain standing. Our first guest is Walter Rodriguez, who is a guest of George Huffman. And our second guest is Aaron Whitehead, who is a guest of Rich Ungaro. And now we'll give you our special Rotary Club greeting.
Stranger, gather round, welcome to our friendly town. Don't feel lonesome, just shake hands. You're among Rotarians. Sit down.
I don't want anyone to feel left out, and I missed a guest. So we also have Ron Southard, who is a guest of Calvin Gardner.
Sorry, Ron, we didn't want to slight you. Okay. Now a bit of Rotary business. One of the happiest things that anyone can do as president of this club is to induct new members. And today we have 2 new members to induct. So I would like to call up Canis Griffin first. And Canis, would you please come up here and introduce your 2 new members?
Absolutely. So I'm pleased to announce these 2 new members to the organization. I know they're going to add a lot. Kelly's already jumped right in and started. She's making me look bad, guys. This is serious. I don't know if I should have brought her. So, so Kelly Roth, please come up. And Maria Zondervan, I've known her for a very long time. She is also going to be a wonderful asset to this organization, and you're all going to grow to love her just as much as I have. Ooh.
Okay. And as you know, this club has a long history. Established in 1920. And our tradition is to read the words that were written by past President Bull Miller in 1922, 100 years ago, to induct new members. So please listen to me here. You have been chosen to membership in the Rotary Club because you have manifested those qualities of head and heart which fit you to interpret and impart the message of Rotary to the community. You become our ambassador, and it becomes your duty to carry the ideals and principles of service to which we aspire. Today, you will receive symbols that signify your new affiliation with Rotary. First, the Rotary pin. And my 2 Rotary pins. Present your Rotary pin, please. Wear the Rotary pins proudly as a sign of your willingness to place service above self. Oh, we also have these pins too. These are additional pins.
Yes. You're going to want those for the days that you forget this one.
And while you're doing that, secondly, today you will receive your red badge, which signifies you're a new member. We know you're... Oh, thank you. We know that you will quickly turn these red badges blue with your participation in our new member orientation. We want you to know that you are not making this commitment alone. I speak for all the members of this club and Rotarians everywhere when we pledge to help you develop in your service to the club, the community, and to the world in which we live, as well as the high ethical standards to which we've pledged ourselves to pursue. Now I ask everyone, please welcome Kelly and Maria as our new members. Thank you, Candace. Did we get a photo?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. Okay, now let's talk about some more business for Rotary business. I'd like to ask President-elect Chris Whitney to come up here and talk about the poker tournament.
Welcome back and Happy New Year. While you all were home having fun with your family and friends, our Rotary Committee for the poker tournament was still hard at work. We created what we called a core team, which are some of the top folks that have been involved in the past. The 3 co-chairs are Mike Young, Tony Boney, and Bob Phipps. I think you've seen them at the podium. But Bill Pieper, Ollie Phillips, David Joyce, Richard Harris, and me all have been meeting, trying to organize the great energy that we put around this event. Now we're to the hard part where we need to get people's names on lists. And a few of the jobs that are most important are table managers, which we need 20 different people. We have one person at each table that collects money, sells chips, and sort of manages and takes care of each of those tables. So we have a sign-up sheet for y'all to pick a spot. We need setup. Bennett Sebastian has volunteered to sort of lead our setup crew, and he needs about 4 people to help. Event solicitation. I know all of you are active in the community, whether you go to other Rotary clubs or other kind of chamber events. Pump up our Rotary Poker event on February 4th. I think tomorrow the website goes active at its new improved level, so you can sign up teams. The team size has been reduced, so it's easier to put a team of 4 together. I think it was more than that before. You can sign up, pay your money, all those kind of fun things. And I think about half the tables are full at this point, so get in. As Rotarians, you get both a discount for being early if you do it in the next so many days, and in addition, you get a discount because you're a Rotarian. So people from outside Rotary pay a little bit more, so take advantage of those benefits. Finally, we are looking for more prizes, whether your company has something that can donate or you can buy gift cards in your company's name. We do a great job through rolling screens during the event. We have table tents, all kinds of ways to say thank you to those who have helped sponsor this event. So we're open to set records for next year. Kudos to Bill Pieper. He has friends from his days in hotels where they're giving us, long weekend packages. Those are things that go on the silent auction tables. It's amazing if you ask people, they respond. So I wrote this down because I go way too fast. So right now, the biggest thing are, we think as this is our major event for the year, everybody in this club should somehow participate. And you have two choices. Either you sign up with the team and play. It's a ton of fun. And if you've been there are very serious poker players in the room, but generally it's a whole lot of fun. And I've worked the tables selling chips. There's just people having a lot of fun. It's great fellowship and it's good fun. And it goes well into the evening. So, sign up to play or sign up to work. Either way, it's a great event, and we're taking care of a bunch of kids at Valencia. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Chris. And now I'd like to ask Denny Career to come up and say a few words about our raffle.
Well, unfortunately, Tammy disappears and everything goes down the toilet. We don't have a deck of cards. So what we're going to do, I have no idea where Tammy has them. We'll do it next week. So if you bought tickets for this week, it's just going to roll over to next week. Right now, we've got about $250 in the pot itself. Remember, if you win, you're going to get half. Hopefully, next week will be over $300. This is a good way to raise money for the club and a nice way to get a nice present to make some money also. So if you want to buy any tickets yet today, come see me, but there won't be a drawing today, just so everybody's aware of that. But hold on to your ticket because it's still going to be good next week. Okay? Any questions about anything?
Okay. Thank you, Denny. And now our second big fundraiser here. By the way, one word about the poker tournament. This is something that we've talked about before. We don't have mandatory events, mandatory meetings normally in this club, but we're going to make an exception this time because this poker tournament is so important to us. We're going to make this a mandatory. We really, really want participation from this club, and we need participation. So don't think about, well, I'll let that one go, I'll join the next time, or I'll get involved the next time around. Don't do it. This time is the time to get involved. This poker tournament is an all hands on deck. We really need you. We need support from this club. And so please put it on your calendar. It is February 4th, thank you. First weekend in February. Make sure it's on your calendar. It's a Saturday. And block out a couple hours Saturday evening. I promise you, you won't regret it. So our second fundraiser is the golf tournament, which is farther down the road, but that'll be our next big one. I'd like to ask John Stein to come up and just say a few words about that, please. So, past President John Stein.
I would like to cover one other item first. This club has been very generous in their gift of food to the Title I schools. Excuse me. On your table, you have your normal little wish list to bring in food next week and the following week, and it will be for Washington Shores Primary Learning Center. Last month, you gave over $320 worth of food to Washington Shores Elementary, just in time for their Christmas break. So, thank you for doing that. The golf tournament for the benefit of the Second Harvest Food Bank and will be May the 8th. That is a Monday. It will be at the Palm Course on Disney. We're still looking for help. We've asked each of you to look, think, and dig down deep and look for people who might be capable of being a sponsor for this event. Sponsorships start at $100 and go all the way up. We have a one at $7,500, another one at $5,000. If you would, please look, think, and see if you can dig up who you think might be capable of helping with a sponsorship on this tournament. We'll have more information on that probably next week or the following. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John. And now it is time for Happy Dollars. Alan Schaefer. Got your mic on, Alan?
It is now.
Great.
Hello, everyone. I'm back. I'm very happy to be back here. And as you know, when we do Happy Dollars, some people like to give jokes. Others like to pick on people. No attention to Tommy, but some people like to pick on people. What I like to do is to give some historical focus to things that have happened in our history.
I have $20. I'm only here for 2 weeks, but I just glad to be back. And I'm trying to look like Emerson Thompson's youngest son.
I have some Happy Dollars. I want to thank Joe Boy for his help in putting together the poker tournament registration package that'll be online tomorrow. I think you'll find it very comprehensive. And I also want to ask the club to help Joe. Joe has a fledgling radio star in his son Tiberius, who actually has a radio show on a couple AM stations and a streaming program. He interviews people, adults, about their work, about their careers, and the program is aimed at young people, 9, 10, 11 years old. He is always looking for people, professional people to interview, and if any of you would like to help out a fledgling radio star by the name of Tiberius Boy, I ask you to contact Joe. You won't regret it. It is a great deal of fun helping this young man. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, in history today, one quick one, two things happened at different times in history, the most opposite things they could be. In 1865, the New York Stock Exchange took an office on Wall Street and became Wall Street forever. The opposite, total opposite thing to me is Nixon was subpoenaed for the Watergate tapes.
I have a Happy Dollar that's historical too. Tommy Tart and our president-elect in Georgia on New Year's Eve, we did not watch the ball drop. We watched it veer to the left 20 yards.
Denny?
Ken, I think most of the people in this room probably shared that same experience. We had a wonderful Christmas because our son, the pilot from Tennessee, spent the entire week with us, both Christmas and New Year's. That was a treat for us.
Thank you. Speak. In 1933, the Golden Gate Bridge was started to be built, and it finished the day that Tommy went over it.
Well, he stole my thunder. There's some money for the thankfulness that after the Ohio State lost to Michigan, that we had a much more respectful day against Georgia.
There's $1 for Southwest Airlines that allowed me to stay with my family in Atlanta 2 extra days.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone. I got to spend part of December up in Minnesota, which might sound not too appealing to many of you, but it was for my younger son's wedding. And so we welcomed a wonderful new daughter-in-law into our family. And we were blessed with a very white Christmas while we were there, and that was also very nice. So,
Great. Looking forward to come over here.
Over the holidays, my wife and I went up to the Panhandle to meet some relatives, 2 nieces that were in Rosemary Beach. And on the way back, we drove 98, the Highway 98 along the coast, all the way along the Panhandle, down Apalachicola, and back up to Perry. If you haven't made that drive, I would suggest you find time to do it because it's a fabulously beautiful drive and one that will show you a part of Florida that you've never seen. It's not Orlando by a big stretch.
Okay, now I put $5 in because yesterday our new little puppy, her name is Cassie, 12 weeks old, she pooped 5 times on the paper. So I put $5 in.
I just wanted to quickly brag about something. I guess in the next day or two, I'm going to be a grandfather for the first time.
Are you around?
Hey, I have $5 happy for my neighbor George Huffman, who brought our new neighbor Walter Rodriguez to Rotary, and it's such a blessing to have Walter and his beautiful family next door. It's wonderful to have them in the neighborhood, and it's wonderful to have you here at Rotary. Another $5. I have some exciting news. Many of you may know I've been a real estate broker for a long time. I started Blessings of Home 8 years ago, and I was approached in October by another one of our neighbors. Her name is Camille Gardner. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. She and her husband, Andy Gardner, they have a child with Down syndrome. They started the Down Syndrome Foundation in 2010. And she asked me if I would consider working for them as their development manager. So she and I have been talking about that the last couple months and prayerfully considering it. And I made that change and I started yesterday. So I'll be changing my classification with Rotary. Thank you. And hope to share more about the Down Syndrome Foundation.
Thank you so much. That's great work. Great work. Dan?
I've got $5 because when I walked in, I was surprised. I saw my good friend Joe Bert is speaking to us today, and that I didn't know he was here, so that's great news.
Am I missing anyone? Then I'll leave the last historical note. In 1928, radio put on its very first variety show, music and acts on the radio, first time ever. It starred, it starred Al Jolson, Will Rogers, Paul Whiteman and his orchestra, and a gentleman who played the trumpet in his band, a gentleman by the name of Harry Goldfield, my great uncle.
Wow. Okay. All right. Thank you, Alan. Now it's time to move on to the speaker portion of our program. Joe Bert is a certified financial planner and accredited investment fiduciary. He's the chairman and CEO of the Certified Financial Group, which is the largest independent personal financing consulting firm in Central Florida, and was just named as one of the top 100 financial advisory firms in the country out of nearly 40,000 candidates. The firm manages more than $2 billion with a B in client money across 36 states. Joe has served on many nonprofit boards over the years. He's an emeritus board member of the Orlando Philharmonic and has hosted a financial call-in show on WDBO called On the Money for over 30 years. He's been married to the same woman for 53 years. They have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. And on a personal note, Joe and I have known each other for, well, we've gone to the same church for 35 years, and he is my personal financial manager. He's done a great job, I think. But he's done so much volunteer work for the church and for the Orlando Diocese that he was knighted by the Vatican in the Order of St. Gregory. That's a real big deal for people that do volunteer work for. And Joe was telling me, as a knight of the Order of St. Gregory, when he goes to the Vatican, he is provided with a horse. They still have horses in the Vatican. He doesn't have to walk around the Vatican like all the rest of the tourists. He can ride his own horse to the Vatican. I think that's a pretty neat thing myself. So I said, I want a picture of Joe riding his horse through the Vatican. So please help me welcome my friend, Joe Bert.
Thank you, David. You read that just like my wife wrote it, and we appreciate it very much. It's nice to be here. Nice to see some familiar faces. Dan Bone, Roger Tolkien, Woody. Where are you? Congratulations on your grandfatherhood. It's a wonderful thing. It's hard to believe we're grandfathers. Probably in the not too distant future, I'll be a great grandfather. My oldest granddaughter is 25, and that stuff happens. And anyway, time marches on. It's an honor to be here, and let me get that for you. You've asked me to talk about the future, and I think the best way to talk about the future is really have a good understanding of where we've been and where we are. And then we can think about, I'm going to end with the things I think we need to consider and some of the things I know are going to impact you and me and our families in 2023. It's hard to believe that it was 3 years ago next month. Do you know what happened 3 years ago next month? COVID. On how our lives changed during COVID. And we're all walking around in fear. By the way, we handed out some hand sanitizers. That is hand sanitizers, by the way. It is now mouth freshener. Some people have thought it was breath freshener. It is not. It is hand sanitizers, and you're welcome to grab one on the way out if you don't have one. But 3 years ago, next month, our lives changed dramatically, and I can remember those days, I'm sure as you can, walking around with masks and washing our hands all the time and all that stuff that we did. I mean, it got to the point where when I went out to the driveway in the morning to get the newspaper, I was wiping down the newspaper because I didn't know what the newspaper carrier was carrying. We go to the gas pump, had to put a glove on if you want to be safe, you know. How we lived through that and how we, you know, when you think about the resiliency of us as Americans and the world, and we're blessed to have come through that. Hopefully there's been no tragedies in your family. I've had lost friends to COVID and went on, but we have survived, and every day we get up and thank the Lord that we're here. So let me talk about what I think is going on, where we've been. Here's the past. The S&P opened up January 3rd last year at 4786, and that was the best we did. And from that point forward, it was downhill. The S&P ended down about 20%. The NASDAQ was down worse because that's about 33%, simply because of it's heavily loaded with tech. And the Dow was the smallest loser, down about 10%. Even the bond market last year, as Dan will probably tell you, was the worst bond market since the Civil War. So generally, when we put together portfolios, it's a mixture of stocks and bonds, and the bonds are designed to protect you on the downside. This year, we got nothing. I mean, it wasn't until the last quarter that bonds really did something. But it was a terrible market in both stocks and bonds. We'll talk about the future in just a minute. Big events, I think last year, I think for the first time, we really got serious about uncoupling from China. And what does that mean? The People's Republic of China, they're out to eat our lunch. And I think America is finally waking up. Driving in this morning, I heard that Dell is pulling out of China. They're not going to do their chips anymore. Apple, the same thing. And it's high time, I think, as a country, I'm going to get a little political here, that we woke up and realized the jeopardy that we have. I don't know if you know this, but 80% of the pharmaceutical materials come out of China that we use. 80% of the you know, if they wanted to kill us today, just shut it off. And we don't have the resources to cover that. So uncoupling of China for the United States was a big thing that happened last year. February 28th, who knows what happened February 28th? How's that changed the world? How's that changed the oil? How's that changed about what we think about? We'll talk about what that might mean in just a minute. Inflation is transitory. Remember that? April 22nd, the administration said inflation is transitory. Janet Yellen, President Biden said, don't worry about it. Inflation's only 4%. We got it under control. It'll be gone before the end of the year. Well, we know how that ended up. How about the red wave? No red wave. In fact, they still can't elect the Speaker of the House. It's still going on. It may be the next election before we get a Speaker of the House. Did not happen. Who knows what SBF and FTX is? Right, Sand Bankman-Fried, and FTX stands for skip my mind. Exchange. Oh yeah, exactly. So $8 billion disappeared. At one time, his company was worth close to $40 billion. He's now sitting with his parents' house with an ankle bracelet. But anyway, that impacted the whole crypto world. Bitcoin, 65% off of its high. Anybody care to guess how many cryptocurrencies are out there today in circulation? 22,000. If you wanted to create a cryptocurrency this afternoon, you go online and you do it. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard of. When I think when it's all said and done, there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 survivors. Bitcoin may be one of them. But in my mind, Bitcoin is not an investment. Bitcoin is pure speculation. There's nothing wrong with speculation. But you have to understand, it is speculation. And the FANGs are out. When we talk about the FANGs, we're talking about Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. They had their worst year in a long time. And so things are changing. The technology world is changing. The whole world of technologies is unraveling or unfolding at a rate that we've never seen before. So let's talk about the present. Prime rate right now is a 7.5%. The federal funds rate, the rates that banks charge each other to lend money and borrow money, 4.5%. Last year at this time, it was barely 0.2%. So how's that changed? Gold is sitting at about $1845 last time I checked. Some people are projecting it's going to be $3,000 before the year is over. Supply chain woes. Here's the interesting thing. The situation right now, I think you may remember when there was the problems we had at the ports and the trucks were backing up and we couldn't get the stuff off the ships and the ships were backed up and the difficulties we had with supply chains and everybody's worried about getting stuff for Christmas and so on and so forth. Right now, the truck trailers are only at about a 75% utilization around the country. What does that mean? That means that we can't get the supply. Stuff isn't being made. Stuff isn't coming out of China for the most part. So there is still some problems, and there's problems, as we know, with microchips. And this is a problem I think we have as a country. You know, we've relied upon stuff being made in Taiwan for the most part, in China. And I don't know about you, but I know that every time I touch something, there's some microchip in it somewhere. Even your pet has a microchip in it, you know? It's crazy. And we've relied so much on foreign sourcing that stuff that we've really created a problem for ourselves. So in many ways, I'm delighted and glad that we have opened our eyes as a country to recognize the problems that we have in depending on cheap labor and a foreign government. You know, how did this occur? It really occurred when many years ago we thought it'd be a good idea to bring the Chinese into the World Trade Organization, the WTO, and to make them part of the capitalist system. The thinking was, you know, if they think like us and we turn them into capitalists, they will become capitalists and the world will be great. Well, what they did is they stole our technology, they stole our goods, and now we're making everything over there and they're making it with our technology. This was a huge mistake, and this is a big challenge that we have and kind of gets into what the future is. Unemployment rate, 3.65. I don't know if you saw the numbers came out this morning. The numbers came out hotter on the employment side than they expected, and the market tanked. Interesting thing, you know, what we're trying to do, or what the Fed is trying to do, is raise unemployment. So it's a crazy thing. When the unemployment gets bad, it's good for the market. When unemployment gets good, when the jobs go up, as it did today, the market tanks. And simply because we know that the Fed is hell-bent on raising the unemployment rate because of wage pressures. Now, I can't figure out the thinking in the government. If any of you can, you please help me. So the Fed on one hand is trying to raise unemployment, and yet the government just passed a bill to hire 88,000 IRS agents. Go figure that. So one hand oftentimes doesn't know what they're doing on the other side. And the good news here, I think, for us here in Florida is we've had 250,000 new people move to the state of Florida last year. And I think this is a great place. When I moved here almost 50 years ago, Orlando was just a little town. I remember a little skyscraper there was Citrus, CNA building. Thank you. And the Citrus Club was upstairs, and that was it. And today you drive through there, and the highways we have, and we're almost looking like Miami or Los Angeles. And the skyscrapers are going up, and it continues to do it. We are blessed to be in this state at this time and place of what we have right now. I can tell you there are folks, there are Rotarians meeting right now in Chicago and in Cleveland that can look out the window and is gloomy. The weather is gloomy. It's what I left. And their economic future is not nearly as bright as it is for you and your families in this room. So we are truly blessed. You are in the right place in the right time, and I know you will take advantage of that. All right, let's talk about the future. Let me get a glass of water first. Now, as Yogi Berra said, it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. And I, perhaps like you, spend a lot of time reading Wall Street Journal, Barron's, listening to CNBC, Fox Business. And if you listen long enough, you always hear or will hear contrary opinions. I mean, that's what goes around. If everybody had the same opinion, those people would be on the air. So I could tell you one thing, and you can easily find somebody next week or next month come in and say exactly opposite. So I'm not going to make any market forecasts. If that's why you came, you're going to be disappointed. But what I want to talk about is perhaps some of the things that we need to consider, and I'm going to make one bold prediction at the end that you can take to the bank. Home prices, they're going to continue to decline. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Why is that? Interest rates, right. Mortgages are going up. That's the bad news. The good news is we're not going to have anything near like we had in 2008, 2009. And the reason being is because the day of the fog and mirror mortgage is over. You know, today people have equity in their home, and they're able to make those mortgage payments. The speculation came out of the real estate market, at least as far as residential housing is concerned. So, however, home prices will decline and probably another 10% off the peak. I think that's my guess as to where they're going to end up. GDP growth, the government predicts about 0.5% year over year. The terminal rate, this is once again the federal funds rate. I think it'll end up about 5.5%, another 100 basis points from where we are. That means another 50 basis points. Hopefully that will do it. This is what the market is predicting. The market predicts a choppy early part of 2023. The second half of 2023 should smooth out, perhaps if the Fed eases up, but we don't know. There's so many wild cards out there, and let me talk about what some of the wild cards are. So that's why I said Fed's going to ease in the second half. How many people think that we're going to face a recession this year? See by show of hands. Be brave. Okay, about half of the crowd. In certain areas, I think you're right. I like the definition of a recession. You know, that's when your neighbor's not working, and a depression is when you're not working. You know, there is a distinction. I'm sure things are going to slow down. I mean, it has to do it simply because of what's going on with interest rates. But this may be the first recession where people are still plenty of jobs. You know, generally, a recession is when you can't find work and things are slow. There are 10.5 million job openings and only 5 million people that want to work. Now, you go figure that. So when things slow down, there's always going to be work. And maybe not the job that you want, but we're not going to have a bad situation like we had in 2008, 2009. And I hope that Powell can pull off the soft landing he was talking about. At least that's my assessment. The Secure Act, it's actually 1.0, was passed. $1.7 trillion. The big part of us in my business, and Dan will tell you, Roger will tell you, is that they changed a lot of the rules regarding retirement accounts. And one of the big things is required minimum distributions, RMDs as we call it in our world. They're moving it out to age 73. It was 72, it's now age 73. It's ultimately moved out to age 75 when you have to take money out of your IRA or your 401k. If you turn 72 this year, you're grandfathered in. You don't have to take it out until next year, even though you're going to be 74. But if you turned 72 last year, you have to make your required minimum distribution. And there's a bunch of other rules in terms of contributions, limits being raised for 401ks and so on and so forth. I won't get into that, but there's a lot of stuff happening here. But you know, we talk about money and we talk about billions. When you talk about billions, it used to be a big deal. Now it's trillions. Let me give you a visual of what $1 trillion looks like. Now you gotta Think about it. In fact, close your eyes and just think about this. You take a pallet, which is 48 by 40 inches, okay, and you stack $100 bills on it, and you get it about 3 feet high. Now just figure a pallet, stack, $100 bills, 3 feet high. That's $1 billion, okay? $1 trillion is you take that pallet and you stack it, so now it's 6 feet high. Okay, you got that figure? And it's spread over 5 acres. That's $1 trillion, my friends. That's 1,000 billion. That's 1,000 billion. And today we spend trillions like it's billions, you know? Next is gonna be quadrillions. And then quintillions. And after that, who the hell knows? But this is and this is, you know, if we don't get our spending under control, we're gonna, you know, we're in sad shape as a country. The good news is we're the strongest country out there. I like to say we're the cleanest shirt in a bag of dirty laundry. But that's, you know, this is still the place that America, that the world wants to come, and the dollar is still the strongest in the world, although the Chinese and the Saudis and the Saudis, and who else is in on this? They're trying to create their own oil currency and so on and so forth. I hope to God they don't succeed to it, but that's what's going on in the world right there. Beijing and Taiwan. This is one that scares me. You know, say what you will about President Trump. I don't think that Russia would have invaded Ukraine had President Trump still been in office. Not that he was any genius, but I think that they feared him. He was a wild card. They knew that if they should do something untoward, they didn't know what he would do. And fear is a great, so when he lost the presidency or wasn't reelected, and Russia saw an opportunity, they took advantage of it. My fear is that the Chinese see a window between now and November 2024 to perhaps take advantage of an administration that might be caught on its heels. And we may be tested as a country. We may be tested as a country. I think the first thing that will happen, China isn't going to necessarily go in and invade Taiwan. What they will do is a blockade to test us. They're not going to fire anything, but they will create a blockade around that island. And if that happens, we're going to be tested. And God only knows how that plays out. I pray it doesn't happen. I pray that the world comes to its senses. The good news is right now President Xi has his own problems. You know, they're just getting over COVID. They're opening up. And I think they're going to have really some severe problems that we faced a couple years ago when our hospitals were overflowing, where they don't have anywhere near the hospital capacity that we have here, and they're going to have troubles there. And the real estate market, I don't know how close you follow that. Huge apartment buildings that are vacant around the country. So they have their own problems, and you know, I'm sure he's analyzing all the opportunity. China, make no doubt about it, wants Taiwan. And we have waited too long, I think, to arm them to the degree they need to be to protect themselves for various reasons. But that, in fact, is something that we need to consider. This is also something, unfortunately, I think is going to happen. Last year, we had they counted 3 million illegal immigrants come across the border, the southern border. 3 million, okay? Don't know how many were not caught. They can't keep track of. I'm afraid that a certain percentage of that 3 million are terrorists, okay? If it's only 1%, that's 30,000. If it's 1/10 of 1%, that's 3,000. If it's 1/100%, that's 300. Imagine what 300 dedicated people can do to create havoc in this country. You saw what happened in the energy grid up in the Northwest. I mean, just look at what happened around Orlando if they took advantage of, and we are so vulnerable when it comes to energy. I think this is the thing that is going to really affect us in this country some way, shape, or form. It's the one that I think is the most imminent besides besides the Beijing and Taiwan situation. 2024 presidential nominees. I'm pretty sure that President Biden will not be the nominee, and I'm pretty sure that President Trump will not be the nominee. It's pretty much open on the Republican side. My guess on the Democrat side is Michelle Obama. That's where I think that's going to go. On the Republican side, we've got some great candidates. I love our governor. Depending on what you think about his politics, I think he can do a good job. I think he's Donald Trump without the baggage. All right. Now, for the bet that you can make in 2023, where you want to hang your hat, the one that I can 100% guarantee you is that the eyesore on I-4 will remain vacant. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'll take some questions. We have about 5 minutes, I guess.
Questions. Let me get on the other side of the room. Holy cow. We'll be here at 1:30. Let me start. I'll come back over.
Thank you very much for your presentation and time today. It was great.
Thank you.
So as of November, I'm quite certain the required rate for the banks is still 0%. Is that something significant that we should pay attention to moving
Required
forward?
rate for the bank.
For reserve, right? So you give them $100. They're usually traditionally required to keep 10%.
Oh, yes. I see what
Now,
you're saying.
right now it's 0.
Yeah. And your question is?
Is that something significant that we should be paying attention to moving forward as our money is being placed into the system?
No. You know, banks are reluctant to raise interest rates, but I don't see any significance in that. I'm sorry, I can't give you a more specific answer.
The requirement is 0.
Yeah, I understand.
So they're allowed to lend out.
Yes. Yes, but they are reluctant today to aggressively lend money unless you're a AAA credit. That's you know, the good news is that their requirements aren't what they need to be, but they are reluctant because they see the writing on the wall of perhaps what's coming on in a recession. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
What impact do you think that the move towards being cashless is happening? And then also, we see more and more merchants going cashless, and I'm wondering why that is. When they have to pay all those merchant fees for the credit cards, it seems like the opposite would be happening.
So you're talking about Apple Pay and credit cards usage not paying at the register with cash. That's what you mean by cashless?
Correct. It seems like more and more places I go that they don't accept cash, which it seems like it'd be in their best interest to accept cash.
I hope this doesn't sound the way it's going to sound, but unfortunately, the people at the cash register oftentimes can't figure it out. If you go to a cash register and you pay in cash and they're supposed to figure out the change, it's frightening. It is absolutely frightening. And the other thing is cash can walk out the door. Credit card and Apple Pay cannot walk out the door. So I think there's security there. So I think it's two things, in my estimation. Yes, sir.
A question. You mentioned when is the government going to wake up? My theory has always been that business, threat of war, drives economic change. Businesses left the country because of paying workers, and it was cheaper. So is it business that needs to change its model, or the government stopping business from using its model?
Does business need to change the model, or?
Does government need to force business to change?
Well, the government always has its hand in our business, and anytime the government has its hand in our business, it doesn't work well. The government in my estimation, is the worst manager of money in the world. You put in $1 and you end up with 25 cents coming out the other side. I think, I hearken back to the days of Ronald Reagan. Less government is what we need in this country. And because of the way the political system is built and the politicians run on money, there is so much stuff that are stuffed in these bills. I mean, it's $1.7 trillion. If you read what's in there, it would make your hair stand on end. No pun intended here, but. Well, listen, I admire you guys that can wear it well.
Hi there. I love
Yes,
your
ma'am.
Union Jack socks.
Oh, thank you.
And I wanted to know, how did you become a prince of the church?
Well, I was nominated to do it, and the nomination goes to the Vatican, and I don't know who does it there. I'm sure it's not the Pope, but ultimately he had to sign off on the designation. So I have a badge. I don't have a horse there. They have stables. They have stables there for the Knights of the St. Gregory, which I am, and I can go to the Vatican, let them know I'm coming, and they will saddle up the horse and let me ride in the Vatican. It's crazy, but it's tradition. Yes, sir.
Joe, during COVID, we had 3 different bills, each of about $3 trillion that pumped into the economy. Now that's about a 50% of the gross national product. So suddenly we had all of this money sloshing around. It caused inflation, but what's happened to it since?
Well, it's out there.
Go?
It's still out there sloshing around. It's why we're not going into recession, because people are still spending money. People are in they're in better financial shape today than they were before COVID. They've paid down their credit card debt. They've got money in the bank. A lot of it, though, was spent on, I don't want to say gambling, but people day trading. At home, they had money. They got money from the government. The younger generation discovered online Robinhood, which is it was a great place to get online. And unfortunately, Robinhood made the gamification of it wasn't investing. It was speculation. A lot of that money was gone through there. That money is still out there to some degree, and that's what the government is trying to rein in. And I know we're up against time, right, Dan? Oh.
Talking about money.
Yes, sir.
And the government's raising things.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's changing now. It's changing. I mean, you can see what happens in the jobs numbers. More people are employed. Yes, the money is running out, and they're waking up and ultimately going to get back to work. Yes. Yes. Yes.
What I'm starting to say, people have been counting on the money. The values of your houses have raised dramatically over the last couple of years.
Yep.
What is happening right now is that the counties are using that to increase the property taxes against the higher values. And I hear everybody in my neighborhood is hurting. Is that something that is allowable or needs to be addressed?
Well, it's by statute what they can and cannot do. I would suspend. And I think this happened, and refresh me for those of you in the real estate business, 2008, 2009, when property values were decreased, I think property taxes went down. There was an adjustment. Is my memory serve me correct? Yeah. But I think it has to be a dramatic shift for that to happen. But let's hope it doesn't get to that. I'd rather pay the taxes and keep things where they are. Yes, sir.
You did a good job of explaining what $1 trillion is. But I wrote a memo, an email, a couple of years ago when the national debt was $23 trillion. And it was not published by any newspaper. It was sent out to a number of newspapers. It was not published by any of them.
Why?
I don't know why. Why? That's my question.
Well, I can't answer why. And unfortunately now, if you wrote one about, and it's being written about the debt situation that we're in, but the American public doesn't understand it, and we go on through our lives, day in and day out, doing what we need to do, and we don't focus on the big picture and the people that we have in Washington. And it's a cesspool up there, frankly. And I think term limits needs to be in place. I would vote for anybody who supported term limits. But the problem is the day you get it to Washington, that's the day you have to start raising money. And where do you go to raise money? You raise it from those people that want favors. And this is how these $1.7 trillion bills get passed. And we just keep doing it. And, we spent a lot of money in COVID. I supported some of that, but I think we got carried away. I think that last bill that we did was overkill and got us in trouble. And I'm sorry that your letter didn't get published. I'm sure it was great, but you never know what's on an editor's mind, and sometimes they want to support the politicians. So,
Joe, one last question, if I may. I've read a lot about a lot of economic problems in China that are down the road going to implode on themselves. Is it true that there's a lot of make-work projects? There's a lot of effort just to keep people busy, whether the infrastructure is needed or not?
Yeah, I mean, when we're using Caterpillars, they're using picks and shovels to do what they need to do just to keep them employed, because that's what the Chinese government, the People's Republic of China, fears the most, is rebellion, and they know that they can't keep those billions of ants under control if all of a sudden, and this is why they took down the COVID limit. And for the first time, President Xi saw what could happen when people revolted about being locked in their apartments to keep the COVID under control, I don't know what the virus is they have today, but yes, the People's Republic of China, their biggest fear is keeping the people occupied at minimum wage, whatever it takes. But if they're idle and hungry, they have a problem.
Joe, thank you for all your
Thank
information.
You. It's a pleasure
Thanks
to be
for
here.
being here.
Thank you very much, Joe. We have this as a small gift of our appreciation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Great way to start out the year. And now to close out, I'd like to remind everyone that we are a business club, so do business with Rotarians. Now, if you silenced your phone, it's time to turn the bringer back on again, and please join me in the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Our meeting is adjourned.